Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Tri Wynn. I'm from Zyxel, and here's Tech Talk. Glad that you could make it here this week. We haven't had one in a while since I've been traveling, and look forward to talking to you about how we can use security and power up different types of voice applications. As you can see, my voice is like a little shot because I don't know, it's maybe not been used as often as I've been remote. So I apologize for that. I might have to like mute and clear my throat every so often. I guess the cup of coffee hasn't really hit in yet. Well, today we wanted to talk about how, people may be neglecting maybe the security side of kind of voice applications. We have a lot of partners who come in on the voice side and are looking to go into networking. And usually, typically with networking, it could be kind of a scary thought because usually the voice network is kind of isolated. You have your switches that you use, your voice over IP phones, and it's kind of encapsulated on its own. But now, especially with things moving into the cloud, your customers are asking you to also provide, piggyback off of their internet connectivity as well. So they're looking at, we're looking at upgrading potentially for the network. And on top of that, some of the security concerns that may apply for that. So before we get started, I just wanted to double check, make sure that you understand. I like this to be interactive. So I see some of my regulars here on the chat. Feel free to use the Q&A section to ask any questions you want throughout the webinar. And if there's any kind of voice or technical issues, you can also send that into the Q&A or in the chat box as well. And I will try to get to those as I can. Hopefully most of my sound stuff that I've had recently has been resolved by changing my mic. So we'll just go ahead and jump right in and talk about welcome to Tech Talk. So a little introduction about who we are if you don't know who we are. We're Zyxel Networks, 32 years in business now, 100 million devices making connections worldwide, 700 employees worldwide in 150 markets. We have now over 1 million businesses working smarter with our solutions. And on top of that, around 250,000 of devices are on our Nebula cloud platform. So that's one of the main reasons of our growth, and also for a lot of our partners moving over from the voice side and getting into networking, because we do make it a lot easier for the networking side of the business. We serve you through our direct account managers. So David, Andy, and Jacob, just to remind you of that, those are the individuals that, depending on where you are in your business, in your state, that they're the ones that you call to for support. You want pre-sales, post-sales support, you need distribution help with particular distribution, or if you have any special pricing or working with our sales engineers, et cetera, that's where you want to get involved with these folks and call them up. We're here to serve you and be your ally in that. We're trusted over, to millions of different connectivity points throughout the world, whether it be hospitality, through retail, through restaurant chains, etc. We partnered up with some, and we've deployed a lot of these kind of systems into those networks. So we're proud to be a part of that, and we're also an award-winning brand internationally as well through our products. A lot of our innovation, our design, hardware and software is all put into is managed by Zyxel, and so our headquarters is in Taiwan, and we're looking forward to continuing our heritage of these kinds of applications, because we are working with you as partners. We work with you and other industry leading partners like Amazon or A10, McAfee, Webroot, to provide a lot of their expertise into our products. And so we integrate a lot of that, and we partner with them and kind of leverage what they do best into our product to kind of make a best in class product together. We've been certified with ICSA Labs for the last 20 plus years. That just means we are co-working, we can co-interact with other firewalls, with other VPN, other security that we've implemented, is certified and can co-work and interop with other products, other vendors that are also ICSA Lab certified. So it's a part of Verizon division, and we're internationally recognized for that as well, for our certification. We are solutions driven, like I mentioned to you. We work with our partners because we have our own R&D resources for software and also design hardware. We want to deliver solutions that make sense for you and for your customers. So your feedback is absolutely vital for us to make sure that we enhance products. We try to make sure that things are working the way that they should, but also in some applications, as technology changes, new applications brings potentially new protocols or maybe new interactions that may require for us to make some modifications on our side to make sure that it co-works peacefully and nicely in that. So we want to make sure that you are part of that ecosystem, and you as partners give us valuable feedback. And so we definitely want that. You may see some of our partners may end up with maybe some sort of a questionnaire. We have some new products that are in the works. I'm trying to make some decisions on maybe certain types of applications that might make sense. So you might see a questionnaire pop up sometime in the near future, just to ask, what is your thoughts on some of these, kind of give us guidance on what you see out there in the market. If you feel a need for those kinds of, high capacity uplinks, like 25 gig uplinks and things like that. So we want to be able to plan out in the future and bring you in as part of that conversation. We are a portfolio driven with a comprehensive portfolio. We like to say we deliver kind of an end-to-end solution there. Anything that applies to networking, whether it be security, wireless, connectivity for switching, gateway access, or network management, both standalone or in the cloud, we have some sort of solution that fulfills that kind of need, or any kind of applications that you may think of, even simple applications, one office, or even to more complex, like you have a whole entire hospitality or multiple retail locations with many VPNs. We can do many complex applications as well. So think of us when, how you have any kind of networking need, we have some sort of product there. So to our topic at hand, it's all about kind of voice and aspects of that. How many of you, just maybe a raise of hands, have originally come from the voice side? Maybe raise your hands there just so I can get an idea. Primarily voice, and then you've moved into kind of networking because out of necessity. I see. Thanks, Austin, Kurt. We definitely see that as well. A lot of our partners, when we work with some of our distributors, they primarily had been working and just selling phone systems, selling, PBXs, and then now moving to IP PBXs, with the voice over IP kind of phase. And then now the trend is to move to the cloud. So you have cloud-based IPPX, you have those kinds of services that are offered where they can really spin out a new service very quickly. And the only thing that holds them back is, maybe a handset if they're not using a soft phone. And then of course the whole work from home kind of aspect. Everyone is now having some sort of soft phone within the cloud or within their PBX system. But overall, voice, I think the number one thing that people kind of want out of voice is the quality and reliability. So quality is a big deal. It's kind of interesting to me. Like there's this kind of I don't know. There's a weird economy or something like that that people who are using cell phones, there is some sort of like aspect to the cell phone where people kind of expect there might be drop calls, maybe the signal is not so great, and you have some poor quality sometimes depending on your coverage. And it seems like with cell phones, people accept that a lot more. But on a handset or on something that they think, is a landline, when they're on the landline, their expectation is that there's perfect quality, there's a little bit of delay, no jitter, no, artification of the voice, or no digitized of the voice, right? There's that expectation almost that is the key. And now that it's moving into more, less of a physical wired connection and into the cloud, that means it's passing through some sort of network and then going to the internet. And we know, like with our ISPs, our network, sometimes with wireless, et cetera, there's some types of congestion that does cause that kind of delay, drop calls. But then the expectation again is like very different from cell phones. I mean, I feel that, and they are, the expectation is that when I'm on that kind of voice line, it should have perfect quality and also reliability. So the reliability of the connectivity always being available is also very important. I think for us, like even when I go to some areas and I don't have like great cell signal or a poor cell signal, if I can't make a phone call, okay, I'll just wait till I can get better signal, right? But here in this kind of land expectation in a business, your expectation is always on. And also now it being available anywhere for voice. So their systems within, even though it's your extension or your phone line, people are wanting these applications to make sure that it rings maybe to their cell phone or when they're working remote in the office or remote office, making sure that connectivity is there. But then most of the people who are coming from the voice side, again, mentioning, moving into the kind of networking side of the business, they can set up the network and get everything running, but is it really secure? So that's one of the aspects that I want to touch on, today, as well as some of the technologies and things that you want to keep in touch with, or in your mind as deliver voice type solutions. And of course, we know that voice is moving to the cloud. All of the kind of applications for IP PBXs and cloud PBXs can be pushed to some sort of cloud service. Now, if you do have some sort of cloud service that you need to interface with, maybe through either AWS or Microsoft Azure, I just want to make sure that you understand that Zyxel is one of only 7 brands in the world that has VPN gateway technology that is certified for both of these applications or both of these services. So definitely check what models you're using today. The VPN series and the USG Flex and the ATPs, they all are AWS and Azure certified, for Azure certified. So you can implement those applications and use our products rather than jumping to a higher brand type more costly type application. So we are certified with them. So definitely for any of those kinds of voice applications. We also want to make sure that, again, the connectivity is reliable in delivering that functionality of voice. So making sure that maybe the VPN connectivity, maybe you're using VPN remotely to make that connection between your office or remote office back to the central office, and have all of your extensions, all your PBX, applications, et cetera, are flowing through that VPN. So you want to now make sure that if you have that hosted locally, that your VPN is always available. So we offer high availability, allows for you to create basically through multiple internet connections and be able to fail over, even in some cases to load balance them as well. So you can maximize the throughput that you need. With voice applications, it's not so critical, but a lot of times it's not just voice, right? People are using voice, video, data applications within that same kind of subset. WAN load balancing. So either in the remote or in the main office, being able to make sure that your connectivity is always on and be able to maximize throughput. Maybe you have to get a connection to implement because we do have a lot of data as well as voice traffic that's going out to different connections. You want to make sure it's available. So we can actually allow for you to get maybe a secondary internet connection. And even on a box that maybe only costs, let's say $300, with full UTM security, a $300 box will give you even load balancing failover capabilities. So you can go out and maybe some of your customers are needing this. You can have your existing maybe T1 connection that's there, that's always on, reliable, but not enough bandwidth. And then maybe get a cable modem service or maybe even a fiber, synchronous fiber type connection that allows for higher bandwidth up and down, that you can then push certain types of traffic. So maybe your voice traffic could still go out the T1 for high availability, reliability. And then if in case the T1 does go down for some reason, or the connection is severed there, it can load balance and switch over and fail over to the other connection. So again, making sure that those applications are widely available. You can even do it with multi-WAN mobile broadband as well, with, of course, LTE. If you have LTE that can terminate into like an Ethernet, or using our LTE, outdoor LTE, to bring in the LTE signal through a SIM card to an Ethernet port and provide that as a secondary WAN or even primary WAN to your connection, then that offers another way for you to make sure you have a connectivity. On some of our higher end models, in terms of our firewalls, they can do multiple WAN. So you can have 2, 3, 4, different WAN connections that you are load balancing or even failing over to. And you can choose how it fails over. Maybe that broadband, maybe that LTE connection is maybe a metered connection, and especially most businesses don't have maybe unlimited LTE on the business account. So because it's limited, you might only want to use it sparingly, or maybe for certain types of applications, or maybe only in the case or in an event of your main connections going down. So you can set that up in your kind of load balancing trunk on how it does that. And then VLAN and control, being able to segregate your networks all the way from, the point of entry from the device to maybe the access point that it's connected to, or to the switch that it's connected to, then from the switch all the way to the gateway, to ensure that that whole entire connection is both segregated and also not exposed to potential either types of attacks or anything that might eat up sessions or cause any kind of fluctuations in the bandwidth or maybe add to lag or jitter that might cause voice disruptions, right? Because it's sensitive to that. Voice, unlike data, data could be resent, packets could be resent, and can be pieced back together again. It could catch back up to rebuild what it needs to build. Like, so when you're streaming and there's buffering, etc. But with voice, it's very time sensitive. It's very critical that if you lose a packet, you're going to have those little drops and little jitters and cutouts that people don't like, right, in voice. And the expectation is that you can have a crystal clear voice connection. So we want to make sure that the voice traffic has the highest priority. And by isolating it into a specific VLAN, you can then control it. You can also use application controls. Maybe you have specific types of maybe a soft phone, or maybe they're using primarily Skype or Teams or something like that. Some sort of application, you can actually detect that application, even if they're not on their own VLAN, and be able to prioritize that as well. So it's very important to be aware of what is going on within the network, and our security appliances give you that kind of visibility, and be able to make you could work through and tweak what is kind of your best scenario, best application, so that you can use that as like maybe a cookie cutter for future deployments. So there's an array of security things that may or may not kind of apply specific to VoIP, but can affect VoIP. Content filtering is a big one, making sure that people aren't going to certain web pages that are not applicable, or that may cause potential for higher risk for malware, or or people going to websites that allow for BitTorrents or the torrent sites themselves, so that they can get to download, and that could cause bandwidth utilization and oversaturation of your network, which then for VoIP applications going out, even though again maybe the application only uses a little bit of bandwidth, but it may cause delay, jitter, lag, whatever it may be, and the VoIP call itself is going to be affected. Right. So there's always that aspect of it when bandwidth is being used. And so with content filtering, with bandwidth control, you're able to then mitigate all of that and be able to even bandwidth manage different types of applications or downloads, or even web surfing, or even to choose with the load balancing what connection those services are going out. With secure Wi-Fi, that's another application that allows for you to make sure that your connectivity to that AP that you've dropped into a remote location is securely tunneled back to your office. And maybe some of the applications can be, very simple to use and install. For example, if you have maybe a Wi-Fi based kind of a phone, handset phone that's connected to your cloud services, but you want to make sure that it's going through kind of your network, so that you have your policies, or maybe certain aspects of it. You can use a secure Wi-Fi AP, drop it into the home or the remote office. It will securely tunnel back to the main office, and that SSID, all of the 802.1x authentication, all the security parameters that you've set for your Wi-Fi in your office could be applied there. And when the user has their phone at home, then all of those services, and it connects to that SSID as if they were sitting in the office. So it really allows for you to manage all of those connections from a Wi-Fi perspective, without having to worry about, hey, do I need to load a VPN, or the aspect of maybe you can only use this phone if you have a soft phone with a VPN like client on your laptop, right? So it kind of opens up that area within the home without having to rely on an existing home network. You don't have to then worry about what router they have at home, if the ISP allows for that kind of port, or anything like that. It's from inside out that this will be built. A tunnel will be built out there through that VPN tunnel. So it makes it simple to deploy, makes it simple to secure as well. Also with those APs, they have connect and protect capabilities to make sure that using AI, using different types of DNS can also mitigate maybe the way that what websites are going to, and kind of malicious potential or risky activities, and be able to protect against that using just the access points and not the security appliance themselves. But of course, we want the full UTM suite, because a lot of our voice customers, they're the voice installers, they're going into a new network, and At first, they're just deploying a simple network to make sure that their voice services are going out. But we know that there are more and more aspects now of either IPPBXs getting infiltrated or hacked in a way that the network, they didn't realize what could happen, where now phone calls are being made through that line or through that PBX that's going to, who knows where. They're using that as kind of a stepping stone to making, outbound phone calls at the cost of, whatever the business is using. So it's kind of like a hijacked PBX. Of course, there's the cloud aspect to it as well, but within the local network, you still have the need to make sure that the local network is secure. So having UTM services like antivirus, intrusion detection, content filtering here, and application patrol, anti-spam, that all is holistically allowing you to make sure that the applications that you're running it, including voice and data, is now secured and now less likely to have interruptions of services because of ransomware or being some sort of exploit, et cetera. So that's what we want to make sure that partners in the voice side are aware of and are comfortable using and deploying this, or at least being able to sell that to your customers, that it's not just about connectivity of the voice itself, but it's the whole network. And if you want us to, go on there and do things right, then we have to consider the security factor of it, just to ensure the quality. If you have a computer that is all of a sudden, taken over as a zombie host for some sort of malware, next thing you know, they're eating up tens of thousands of sessions trying to find other hosts. Or if it's, ransomware, it could take down the network, in terms of its utilization. So we can use these firewalls to mitigate it when it happens, and also to protect against it when it happens. So we want to connect and protect all applications, not just voice. And usually the user is kind of the one that is kind of the cause of a lot of it. Not only is it coming from the outside, maybe some sort of file or maybe some sort of injection or vulnerability they're trying to exploit. But most of the cases, most of the infections that happen is from users using their internet in a way that could be risky, could be a way that might increase their chances of getting some sort of ransomware or phishing. And again, we want to make sure that all of that is protected through our network, whether it just be the Wi-Fi itself or through the whole system. And it's a whole system kind of protection. We want to make sure that not just the gateway is where you have your protection, but holistically throughout the endpoint, if possible, as many of it as possible, to make sure that none of those points of entry has a potential to cause kind of the entire network to go out. So we have security solutions that really evolved to meet these kinds of demands of an ever-changing environment, different applications. Years ago, there may not have been, some of these communication applications that we're using today. And it's evolved as well, people wanting to use more video, more interaction, more, face-to-face kind of FaceTime type, with Zoom calls and, Skype being more interactive. That's going to use more than your traditional kind of voice traffic. You can have very high quality voice for very small traffic, kind of if you think about it packet size wise, but for video, then all of a sudden you're adding, another layer of traffic that's now all of a sudden you're streaming, an HD 1080p, camera or a 4K camera, to wherever, right, to your Zoom meetings or to that. So we want to make sure that, you're in a meeting, you're not getting that kind of jumbled jar, like I kind of had that digitized voice like in the previous webinars, but that was kind of a different reason. It wasn't my internet connectivity or anything like that. But that's what we want to avoid. And so we want to make sure that when we're seeing a video, like you're seeing my video, that you're not seeing, artification, you're seeing a good quality picture, hopefully. So that's what we want to make sure. And so we want to evolve to that and make sure that it's also done securely. So working with our solutions, we provide kind of all those aspects and be able to mitigate those threats using some of the technologies that we've implemented today. So we work together within our network, and this is why using Zyxel is important, and even for our voice partners. Using Zyxel helps you kind of take care of all the things that you need to worry about when you're deploying your network, because we protect your users together with all of our different products. We even have solutions called collaborative detection response. And what it does is that with our firewalls, it can detect if there's some sort of malicious activity and be able to communicate that and be able to isolate the user at the access point level to, again, prevent them from maybe causing further harm, or maybe some of the usage or whatever they're doing could potentially cause harm or is malicious. We can then ask, make sure that that's isolated, and so it doesn't cause any further damage or bring down the network per se. So then you can be notified of that and then be able to take action. And I think visibility, I think that's the scariest part with like coming from myself, also from the voice side of things as well, is that you had your voice, and as long as the voice worked and the PBX was up, then everything was good. All your trunk lines and stuff were all mapped, and it would just work, right? Because it's just a landline. And now all of a sudden you're introducing, well, now with all the data that's running through it, the video potentially, like, how do I even manage? I don't even know how to see that, right? At least with voice, you can listen to it if there are voice quality issues. But with the data that's happening, you have no visibility of what's going on. How much bandwidth am I using? What applications are being used? How do I even control it if there's even a situation that I need to worry about? Well, with the Zyxel solutions, and it gives you that visibility, and visibility is very important for IT managers like yourself to see what's going on the network and be able to make a choice, make a decision what to do with that kind of traffic. Am I isolating right? Are they even isolated? Do we have different DHCP pools that are running on the same VLAN? Whatever it may be, you can get that kind of visibility within our products. And then provisioning is a big deal. A lot of us, we don't like configuring units, especially one by one, right? How many of you have deployed the same firewall and you had to go into the configuration the same time 100 times over, right? You may have just copied the configuration, but you just nonstop, same thing over and over again. Or if you're deploying like APs or even phone systems, it's kind of the same process. And be able to do that, and deploy it for maybe hundreds of phones, in a location. It's easier when your network is kind of, almost automated. So we can centralize the provisioning and synchronize them across maybe multiple customers. You can have customers, maybe, you're deploying the voice solution for, 15 retail stores, and you can deploy them and synchronize them, configuration, do multi-site deployments. You can cookie cutter a lot of the configurations. So you really just have to work on, what is my base application? What is my main application? And build that out as secure and as, reliable, or, however you're doing your applications, it works and you've tested that, then that becomes kind of your base. And that base template can then be copied over to multiple sites. And then you just have to minimally make some changes. Maybe you change some SSIDs, maybe the VLANs are exactly the same, but your applications is, you just have to worry about this group of phones instead of the ones that you've deployed in the first store. But be able to do that, including, configuring the devices without even taking it out of the box. So you can deploy access points, switches, gateways, as long as you know that serial on MAC and you've applied it into your Nebula network, then you can pre-configure it before it even gets there. So installing it, a lot of our voice customers may not have like a Cisco CCNA or a certified network installer type person, but we can take all of that, all out of the equation. You're not required to do that. You only have to have somebody who is, competent to plug in, or is trained to plug in a WAN connection into the firewall, a firewall into the switch, and the switch into the access point, right? So that then, once it gets internet connectivity, calls home, gets all of its configuration files, and then it's up and running. So it's really simple to deploy that, even for VPN connectivity, be able to, basically select multiple sites that say, okay, let's make a VPN for this customer organization. They're going to build these VPN tunnels together. And so it will automate the kind of hub spoke kind of situation there, and be able to build all of that, very easily, very quickly, without you having to know all the different technical details on how to get VPN, connected together. So it really helps to do that for both existing kind of IPPBXs that are in-house in the office, since that's still the primary. Though there are more moving to the cloud, that's still going to take time. So there's still that aspect of how do I make that connectivity securely within multiple offices, within multiple branches, and of course, people who work from home. So we want to make that as simple and reliable as possible and as easy as possible through this kind of synchronization and deployment. And with remote workers, like I mentioned earlier, be able to make sure that you have like two-factor authentication, take the headache out of worrying about your existing firewalls or existing modems that are sitting in the home network. You can literally deploy these APs with the secure Wi-Fi functionality anywhere you have connectivity, anywhere you have a DHCP that has internet connection. It can then be its own tunnel. You just have to power the device either by PoE or with an AC adapter. And now all of a sudden you have your extension of that office, of whatever remote office you're at. So it really provides you a good endpoint security function without having to install, another VPN client on your mobile device, on your tablet, on your phone, or on another device or on your laptop. Right? You can do all that just by connecting to that SSID and still be authenticated. So this is kind of just an example of that remote AP, remote office, again, using it for voice applications, to extend your extensions easily, simply while people are working remote and not have to, again, deal with, ports being opened on the local firewall or on the local, maybe home network. And on top of that, you're then securing yourself where you have a little bit of more control over what's going on. You're not piggybacking off of a home network that has smart TVs, smart fridges, everything else that's on there, or even your neighbors that are on that network, right? So you can make sure that the business application is then secured for business use and goes back to your office. So it seamlessly creates that corporate access to that network. And then again, visibility, being able to see that network and see what's going on from a security level. You can monitor with our secure reporting functions in the Nebula platform to see, identify threats, maybe abnormal user behaviors. You can create customized reports. And so a lot of voice customers, partners are always on a, they're on a monthly billing, right, for service and usage. So their customers are very, trained or used to those kinds of services. So adding on security network services to kind of that offering is kind of a natural thing. You're providing not only the voice, but then you're providing security to facilitate, to ensure that the voice quality and ensure that the voice network itself is going to be reliable and secure. So these reports will give you information on bandwidth usage, maybe certain websites that people are going to mostly, who's using the most bandwidth. You can customize them and even customize them with your logo, et cetera, that you can export to your customers, again, to show value of what they are, paying for. With voice, you have your phone line, you see value when you make a phone call. And if the quality is good, it's, reliable, then you feel like you've, got your money's worth, right? And the moment that you have any kind of, artification or like, digitized voice and things are breaking up or drop calls, that's when you call and complain to, you as partners, like, why is my service not working correctly, et cetera. And a lot of times it could be network related. Again, now that we're moving to IP over voice over IP type technology, or even within the cloud, it could be a network congestion. It could be any kind of network related application that can cause, that kind of that service, the quality of service being bad. So without visibility, without knowing, hey, have you noticed that so-and-so, you have some sort of device that is now downloading all these videos, during work hours and eating up all your bandwidth? If you're okay with that, that's fine. We just might need to increase your bandwidth to make sure that all the other services can still have, bandwidth to use. So being able to see that is very important. Again, visibility. So our USG Flex series is kind of your midline product that you want to start with. And it provides you both a standalone and also with full UTM. So it can give you that full security if you need to. You can manage it both standalone or in Nebula Cloud. But I want you to definitely consider the Nebula Cloud because of that auto provisioning. We make things a lot easier. It's simplified kind of interface, simplified feature set as well to make sure that these applications can be configured easily and quickly, even by people who may not have a complete networking background. Of course, with the networking background, it's very straightforward as well to be able to configure those and to connect different types of businesses. So we kind of scale, and of course, you want to work with some of our systems engineers to kind of come up with your template, your type of customers. But most networks, as you've deployed before, it's pretty much the same, right? You have a gateway of some sort, some switches, and some access points. And that depends on the quality that you want, the budget that you want, and also the size of the business or the internet connection. So you can get all these devices running up pretty easily, with a USG Flex 50. That formerly is known as a USG 20. It's renamed now as a USG Flex 50. And we have our new GS 1915, low power, economy cost. So this is kind of a budget for a small office, maybe a dental office, et cetera, that needs some level of security, but with also access point for guest network access. So these kind of like a budget build here for that business. If you want to step up a little bit, full UTM, maybe you need HIPAA compliancy or PCI compliancy, then USG Flex 100 will apply to that. And again, you're deploying the network for all the applications, including voice. And then in the same vein, you're protecting the users there as well. And you can have those different types of plans. I think voice people love a lot of different options for their customers. So you have your, entry level voice only type with just basic networking. And then of course, moving up to a higher level business class type products that you're offering, for a higher monthly fee. So there's a lot of range there, flexibility on what you can use and mix and match as well. And all of these are Nebula platform capable with Wi-Fi, 6. Or if you have a larger office, maybe needs to leverage more users, higher bandwidth, et cetera, then we have higher end firewalls, but you can still mix and match with whatever switches and gateways might, be needed in those aspects. And then ATP series is the kind of go-to if you need all-inclusive, everything, all the highest levels of security possible that we have in our solution. This is where you would deploy those types of firewalls. On the PoE side, on the switch side, it's also important to make sure you have enough power to power up different types of voice. Now, a lot of these APs or a lot of these switches were made to help to power access points, but a lot of our customers may not need such a high power budget to deploy their maybe voice solutions. But just to know, we have a large power budget and it uses our technology for what we call a consumption mode. So it only draws enough, it only puts against the budget what the actual draw of the product is. And I have an example of that right here. So just say, for example, you had some, handsets in a classification mode, it would classify it as a 15.4 watts. So that's your PoE standard, just your PoE class 802.3 AF, which 15 watts is probably most phones, unless you're going maybe higher end, maybe video, or maybe even a pan tilt zoom capable type, then you might use a higher end, kind of handset or camera, whatever it may be. But let's just say this is the case. You have a handset that in classification mode, 15.4 watts. If you wanted to power 40 phones in a 48 port switch, you would need 616 watts of power, which is a lot of power if you just for a budget perspective. And a lot of that is wasted because in actuality, this particular phone, let's say, only uses 9 watts of power. So with consumption mode, we actually only put 9 watts of that power draw against the budget. So in order to power up, let's say 40 phones on a 48 port switch, you would consume 360 watts. So that's within the 375 watt power budget of this particular switch. So it maximizes what you can deploy without having to, oversaturate kind of the network in terms of or overpowering the network with extra wattage. So extra wattage also means that you're going to consume, also more power as well in the long run with a larger power supply, trying to power up, those, even though there's not the draw, there's still a larger power supply overall. So that's kind of the advantage of using our switches. And of course, our switches help you to segregate that network. Remember, I mentioned that you have to make sure that from the endpoint device, whether it be a soft phone connected via Wi-Fi, that is connecting to an AP. That AP SSID has to be able to either recognize that voice traffic or be able to put it on a specific voice VLAN so that it can go through the network. So the AP then has to pass that VLAN information onto the switch side. So then the switch has to understand that VLAN as well, so that it can also prioritize that. So moving that from the switch then to the gateway also has to then understand VLAN. So through the entire chain, if any of that VLAN information gets broken, then all of a sudden wherever it's broken is no longer prioritized. You no longer have control over that segregated network, and they're no longer segregated. So there's potential for other networks to see it or to interact with it, or maybe cause bandwidth usage or jitter lag that's happening, or maybe a broadcast storm, whatever it may be within that VLAN. So we're able to protect that. We can even do automatic VLAN based on the device or the OUI of the device. So the MAC address information, or maybe even the IP ranges, et cetera, we can actually put them automatically based on that information into its own VLAN at the switch level. So ensuring that those are getting isolated as you need, and then be able to recover and recover different types of PoE devices. Maybe the phone that's PoE powered by your switch is detecting that there's something going on, there's no traffic, etc. You can then use AI to then reset that device. So maybe power cycle it, maybe brings it back online, or you can maybe get some more information through the Nebula platform. You can drill into that particular port or get notified of that information. So that works for both APs and any kind of device that might be powered by the switch, or you can remotely go do that and power cycle it through the interface itself. So the machine learning also helps to block against any kind of broadcast storms, any kind of things that are happening within the network. It can detect and take action and mitigate that, again, to improve quality overall for all sorts of applications. It helps you also to visualize your network. With voice, you didn't have to really visualize. You had physical connections between devices to the switch, to the network, to the PBX. But with the whole network with multiple VLANs, being able to have connections on switches, gateways, and access points, it's really nice to have this kind of visualization within the network. You can see the virtual stacks, you can see the network topology, what things are plugged into where, and all that information can be provided real time. And you can even utilize, drill in to those devices and be able to see some of that information as well. And then access to different types of diagnostic tools to do testing on the line. I know a lot of our voice people love to be able to do loop tests, etc. So you could test that line, make sure, is it the Ethernet cable, or is it something else, or that fiber line that is causing issue. Paul asks, if one wanted to learn the nuances of VLAN configuration on Zyxel switches, is there a video one should watch? I don't know if there's a particular video on VLAN configuration. I'll ask our systems engineer. He may have or may want to do a webinar. He usually does it. The kind of the last week of the month is his kind of webinar time. He does a tech talk on more kind of the nuances of things. So I'll definitely ask them, Paul, to do that as a topic, and then we'll have a video for it. So there are definitely those nuances to make sure that things are locked in. Typical case scenarios. A lot of people standardize on what VLAN is their voice VLAN and what is their management VLAN, and there's information that you need to know as well. We have a default VLAN that's for the management of that VLAN products, anything that supports VLAN. And so if you're going to change that, you just need to know why or what you're doing, and why you want to have a different number than the management VLAN per se. So that's just something that some of the nuances that you may have to deploy. I have to check into, but I'll definitely look there, Paul. Thanks for the question. And be able to make sure that the network is reliable, right? Again, voice is no good if the network itself is some sort of storm, some sort of configuration issue or traffic issue, and its reliability and security is not there. So making sure your switches are available is very important. And with our solution, you're able to not only back up and restore configurations of switches, but actually APs, gateways, and access points. And be able to do break fixes is very easy as well. I think that's kind of the fear people have. Oh no, I forgot to back up that switch that I installed last week, or or a year ago. I don't know where that configuration file is, or a lot has changed since then. I don't know if I have the latest version, and I need to replace that switch. What do I do, right? So being able for you to do a cloud backup and have it kind of scheduled, so it's kind of nothing for you to worry about, backs up every day, every week, whatever it may be. So you have a copy of that you can then, when you do a break fix and switch it out, it can be loaded back in automatically. Now, if you're using the Nebula Cloud, it's going to be really easy, because you just say that switch is part of that organization, that site, and it will just inherit the configuration that the previous one had that was already pre-programmed on it. You don't even have to go and load it in. Now, if you were doing standalone, then you could have a configuration file that you could pull down and then load in manually if you needed to. But of course, the cloud is where to go, in my opinion. But you have all the security, authentication, ACLs, 802.1x to ensure that the network is not getting, having any kind of issue. There are a lot of networks that maybe have physical ports that are there that are unused, right? And if somebody who's smart enough just to be dangerous type people, and we know that we have a lot of those kinds of people out there. Oh yeah, I've installed a network at my house, so I'm certified. So they're
Sorry, could you say that again?
No, I'm not talking to you, Siri. They 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 would go into the office and bring maybe their own network router that has Wi-Fi, and maybe they're plugging it in wrong. And if they plug the LAN interface into your network, then all of a sudden it's potentially DHCPing to the entire network. And that could cause, they may even be plugging into the voice network, which then can cause all sorts of problems with soft phones, or even your IP phones not getting the right IP addresses. It can cause all sorts of situations where then the voice now is, being affected. So we have auto protection, things like loop guard, DHCP guard, to make sure that there's no DHCP traffic that's coming from an unknown port or unknown source or unallowed port. So we can block all of that within the switch level. And that, again, provides things that people don't typically think of until it happens. And then it's really hard to try to figure out, right? If somebody accidentally put a DHCP on your network, how long do you think it'll take you? It'll probably take you a little while to go, what's going on? Why is it getting this IP address? Where is it coming from? Like physically, somebody could be, hiding a firewall somewhere in the network, having it just plugged in, and that port shouldn't be, open to that public or open to that capability. So we're able to do that. And then also reliability for, link aggregation, making sure that when you have switches in that network built in a ring topology, again, people don't realize, you want to make sure that your network switching, in case one switch goes down, not the entire stack of switches would go down or lose connectivity. You want to build in that robustness to make sure that that's all available. So having, RSTP, and switch routing capabilities, et cetera, is very important in that, to provide that network resilience. And I already mentioned this before, hassle-free deployment for switches, gateways, access points. It helps to speed it up. It also helps you to be comfortable with something that you've tested, and you really made sure that works for that application, and it ensures that your deployment is smooth and it works fine. So we had just released and have continued to release some additional models in our 1915 series. This is kind of our step up from a 1900s. Many of you have always asked, do you have a GS 1900 that can support Nebula? Well, this is the product. The 1915 series is basically a GS 1900 series type product in that feature set, but now can be standalone or flexed into the Nebula platform. So we've already released the 8-port models there, the 8 EP. It provides 60 watts of power on 8 ports. Or you have we're having our deployment of our 24 EP. It provides 130 watts of power on 8 ports. So it's still kind of a hybrid, low cost, lower power budget, but great for those kinds of applications that might have a mixed network there. So 12 ports PoEs with 130 watts of power overall. So you can mix and match that with your existing data type applications as well as PoE applications, but at a budget cost, and give you free Nebula access as well as the paid for the professional level of Nebula. So on the Wi-Fi side of it, there's also concerns or things you want to think about. Not only are you providing this kind of connectivity for voice now, more applications using kind of the Wi-Fi side, so that people can, roam around, or maybe they have their handsets that are Wi-Fi connected VoIP phones. You want to use Wi-Fi that's easy to deploy, things with like even single mesh capability. So deploying Wi-Fi, if you have an area that needs coverage that it's difficult to get a wire to, you can extend your Wi-Fi coverage into that area without any kind of cabling. You just need power to the device, and that can build that mesh kind of networks through it. Now, of course, with voice, you have to be careful. You don't want to continue to chain, multiple APs like, in a line, because of the latency that you end up adding to kind of that to that application. So for data, it's fine, but for voice, again, it's more sensitive on that, your delays, your jitter, your lag. So we don't want it to affect it too much. So typically though, it's all wired connectivity people use when they can get there, but there's just those some cases where you need to go that extra one hop, that this is a much better, an easy way to do that. And we use enterprise class standards for our Wi-Fi. So 802.1x, WPA2, WPA3 for authentication, and then also roaming standards. With voice, it's more important, more so than data when roaming. With data, people are just, surfing web pages, and there's a lot of buffering that could be involved as well, even if they're streaming. So moving from one AP to another is less likely that people are roaming, when they're using kind of that data aspect. But for voice, it's more common. People are walking around with their cell phones. Maybe you have applications that you're deploying, maybe the cell phone handoff to a Wi-Fi connection, which a lot of phones can do these days. But if you're offering that as part of the services there, you want to make sure that that network can be handed off correctly, and be able to, as they move and they roam, that you're using these kinds of standards like fast roaming, especially if you're doing authentication at the same time for assisted roaming, as well as we use AI. So we use AI to also discover that and help with the roaming aspect. Nowadays, there's more and more applications that you want to use dynamic pre-shared keys. So being able to provide personal pre-shared keys to people allows for you to have one SSID, let's say in an office building, right? Let's say you're deploying an office building and you want to have multiple tenants, but they use the same SSID within the network. And based on their pre-shared key for their phones, for their client devices, their personal pre-shared, will put them automatically into, with that unique password. Anyone who uses that PSK ends up in their own bucket, in their own VLAN. So then they have their own bandwidth control, bandwidth management, prioritization, and within even that, you can then detect maybe the voice applications out of that to then prioritize over the other data that's on that same network. So then it allows for you to not have to deploy, every user or every AP, every tenant has their own SSID in the entire building. So then they can roam within that entire building and have their own private network, throughout that. So we see a lot of that. We see that within the hospitality, where people want to share maybe their, I don't know, Google Chrome, Chromecast, or maybe they have an Xbox or something like that that's isolated within their own kind of almost resort, their own home, and be able to use the entire network anywhere they go. So that really helps with that kind of application. And we use, like I mentioned earlier, AI to make sure that the users are connected and roaming correctly. Again, with voice, it's very critical that they're using the best quality connection possible, high signal strength, highest bandwidth. So as clients are moving from AP to AP, we have AI within the system that you can set thresholds as well to make sure that the users are connected at the highest. Maybe if they drop to -85, we kick them to try to reboot them to a new AP, so that they can get a better connectivity with that. And you get visibility of that too. So if you need to kind of troubleshoot a user, make sure that their Wi-Fi itself is strong, you can see that within the visibility of the Nebula platform. And if you want to learn more about the Nebula platform itself, we do have webinars every month that talk about that, as well as previous videos specifically on the Nebula platform. So that's kind of our bread and butter of what we want people to use, is that Nebula platform. and use it, because it has so many tools for any kind of user applications that you have out there. And because of our design of our Wi-Fi, we're committed to lifetime warranties on our products, both Wi-Fi switches and gateways that you use. We provide robust RF designs, and we're proud of that. And we designed our, we own the IP for what we call smart antenna, and that helps to mitigate, reduce interference, increase capacity, coverage, and provide better solution for customers for all sorts of applications, whether it be data, voice, video. So with the new technologies like Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E is coming around the corner as well, provides higher bandwidth, provides also better kind of communication between multiple clients at the same time. That's where kind of the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 is. So definitely think about that. If you have Wi-Fi with voice applications, being able to have a better capacity, better bandwidth ensures that that is getting from the Wi-Fi to the switch as fast as possible and as cleanly as possible, so that then from there it goes from the switch to the gateway and then out to the internet, to the cloud service. So after it hits the cloud, that's kind of out of our hands. We can't do much about that after that, but we can ensure that at least from here to your ISP, it's going to go as quickly and as best as possible. So there's importance of kind of the network design, like I mentioned, making sure your VLANs are squared away and your security is there to make, and then make sure that it's all reliable, robust, involved. So whether you're working with a wired network or wireless network, there's a lot of things you want to, keep in mind or think about. But we also offer, to our partners, access to our system integrators or systems engineers to help you think through, what are the options, what kind of application you're trying to deploy, what are kind of your must-haves, and then what kind of thresholds we're sitting in. How fast is your internet connection? How many users? How many devices are we talking with, voice, video, or data? All of that comes into play when we kind of build out the network. But once we build out a network structure for your application, it's pretty cookie cutter in most cases. Like, it's very similar. It's just a matter of scale. You want higher bandwidth, you move up, higher firewall. If you want better Wi-Fi coverage, you use our smart antenna technology instead of kind of the basic, right? So there's a whole range of that we want to help you through. And we work through our through a distribution channel, through D&H, Ingram, Synnex, Wave, Target, Pace. If you don't have an account with any of those, definitely get one or provide us with it, because as a partner, a new partner starts at a silver unless you attend one of our kind of trade show events. Then we can talk about that as well. But we want you to be in the gold plan. I'm going to be in Miami for the ASCII event for the MSP Summit at the end of this month. So if you are in kind of that area or want to go to that, definitely reach out to us. We have a coupon code, Zyxel. If you go to ASCIIevents.com, you can sign up for that and register for any of the events. We're going to be at all the events, but the next one we have is in Miami, Florida. So if you'd like to go to Miami on a hot August, end of August timeframe, feel free to come out and join me there. We'd love to meet you. All right. So if you want to connect with me as well, or with us, Zyxel US channel is on LinkedIn. Zyxel America channel is on YouTube. If you want to see some of our past videos, our webinars are also there. And also, if you want to connect with me, you can search for just Zyxel Try, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Now, if you have any questions, I didn't see any other questions right now except for Paul. If you have any questions now, please feel free to use the Q&A section. If there's not any, if you think of something later on, you can always email me. It's TRI at Zyxel.com. So we'd love to hear from you again, and just love to talk to you, again, interact with you, see what you need. Again, we'll just keep an eye out for any questionnaires that you might see from Zyxel regarding maybe new products, or you might be getting a call from our sales rep directly there to kind of ask some of these questions as well. We'd love to get your feedback on, where do we go with new products? If you have any ideas for new topics like VLAN configuration, Paul, then we'd love to know that as well, so that we can help you and empower you as partners to deploying Zyxel. So if there's no other further questions, thank you, Paul, for that. You're welcome, Wayne. You're welcome for the training. I hope it was been informative, and some of the things maybe I've mentioned helped you in some ways think about different applications that you might be doing, or maybe you hadn't been considering security or some of these aspects, from the voice side, and how to make sure that the voice quality you can use this philosophy really for any kind of application, not just for voice, but voice because of its sensitive nature. Kind of requires this hand holding a lot more than you would think in kind of the compared to data type connections. But data in essence in certain applications also will have these kinds of will face this as well. And if you're deploying any kind of network, we want to make sure that you're doing it securely and effectively. So since there's no other questions, I will thank you. Have a great rest of your day. We look forward to seeing you again at another training, or see you in Miami or in any other events that we will be attending for the rest of the year. So look forward to seeing you. Until next time, my name is Tri, and this was Tech Talk. Have a great day.